Welcome to Rooster Radio, a broadcast dedicated to supporting and promoting local artists in the Gaston County and surrounding areas.
This episode of Rooster Radio is brought to you by Viva Techie. Viva Techie is ready to serve you fresh, delicious Mexican street food at its finest. With selections like street-style tacos, burritos, Mexican bowls, quesadillas, and more, Viva Techie will fulfill your Mexican food needs. So next time you're craving Mexican food, come on to downtown Gastonia and check out Viva Techie. They're at 238 West Main Avenue, and when you get there, tell Francisco that the Rooster sent you.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the Pentecostal church, man. Like,
so, all right. So, being raised in a Pentecostal church, you know, I lovingly joke that Pentecostals as close as white people can come to a black church. You know, it's rowdy, it's loud, people are speaking in tongues. There's 70-year-old women jumping up and down, and as a kid growing up in that, you're just like, what's happening right now? But as you get older, you start to learn that the reason these things are happening is people are overwhelmed by these emotions. They're overwhelmed with this energy that's in the room. And I get it. Now, today, I don't get it from church, but I get it from live music. Yeah. That same energy that you feel, when you're in church, or whatever it is that you worship, or whatever it is, however it is that you release that energy or take it in, I get it through live music. And I think that, that's probably the reason why it's so much harder for local original artists than it is for, say, cover and tribute bands. Yeah. Because when you know these songs, they're in you. These are songs that that have helped you through hard times. They're songs that are like little page markers in your life that, like, I remember exactly where I was or what was going on that summer this album come out. Yeah. So when you go to these tribute shows or these cover band shows and you hear them songs, you're just like, yeah, you're getting into it, you're singing along. And you can't. It's hard to replicate that energy when you're writing original music that nobody's heard. Right. And that's the struggle. That's the fight that we have to fight. And I don't want anyone to think that I'm disparaging cover bands, because I love cover bands. I've seen many we do tribute shows here. I just wish more people cared about the local original stuff.
I absolutely agree. But again, how do you make that connection when nobody's ever heard that music to connect a memory to or an emotion to? Right?
Yeah, they've definitely got. I mean, tribute and cover shows definitely have a place on the landscape, because people have to come and they want to have a good time and they want to hear,
It takes them back to something that they
totally. Because and that's how we all started. I mean, even as people that write our own stuff. I mean, we started with hearing stuff that we love, and we still go back and we love those songs, And
you guys cover songs in your shows too, right?
We have in the past. I mean, we kind of made it, relatively recently, when we got back together in 2020. We made it kind of a unspoken thing. We weren't going to do covers for a while, because we were like, no, we want to, because there's enough bands covering other people's stuff out there. We want to concentrate on writing our own stuff, but we have done it.
We got a lot of stuff that,
and we got a lot of stuff that we want. Yeah, we got stuff that we're trying to do ourselves.
Well, to your point about how do you kind of overcome that challenge? That's part of the reason we do this podcast. When we have an opportunity to play a video like the one we just saw, it gives people an opportunity to see that and get more connected with the artists that we play here. But what I've learned we've only been open 3 months. But what I have learned is that when we do bring in original artists, I'm behind the bar. I'm watching everything happen. And when bands do cover a song that a lot of people know, that energy in the audience, it goes up.
Sure.
People get excited. They want to sing along. And then the rest of their set is just a little bit more energy in the room because they covered that song. And, I guess there's something to be said about that. That's why it's not about. I mean, hell, I've gone to see huge bands, and even the biggest bands in the world still will cover songs in their shows. And for when you're on that level, it's more of a tip in your hat.
Yeah, I was kind of always of the school of for us to cover a tune would be like the same way like a country band would do a classic country song, where you're saying this artist was an influence on us, and and we're kind of or at least sonically in the lineage of this guy, and you're giving a shout out to that artist, and then hoping that engages the audience at the same time.
That in and of itself deepens that connection between artist and audience, because you're giving your audience this little peek into like how you got to where you're at with your art. Is like this guy or this band, this singer influenced me. So again, I don't ever want anyone to feel like I'm disparaging cover bands or tribute bands, because I'm not. I think they're wonderful. They provide a service to people. People can't afford to go see Paul McCartney. People can't afford to go see Rolling Stones. Those tickets are outrageous. But if you can go to your local venue, the Rooster in downtown Gastonia at 334 West Main, you might be able to catch a band playing a song that you love.
Yeah.
And then you connect with that artist and you start listening to their music, and then next thing you know, you've got this whole new catalog of music that can mean something to you, that might speak to you in some kind of way. That's our purpose.
Honestly, we're kind of mutants in the sense that like most guys our age aren't. We're not as invested in, they're not as invested in like writing original music as we are. We're kind of lifers, you know what I mean? And so
I'm not seeing it like that. I'm seeing people of all ages, Maybe you might feel that way because you're not like.
It's felt like that, and it's felt like that to me, where it feels like most guys our age are doing tribute or cover bands, whereas like
it depends on the scene too, right?
Depends on the scene, I guess. But
so
we feel kind of isolated that way. But
if you're wanting to make a living at it, you got to do the covers. You got to do the bars, and you got to give the people, like you were saying, that connection of things that are familiar to them. So.
We're talking to Roman Candles today. We've got Rodney and Gray in the studio. So I guess I should have done that earlier. But so how are you guys doing? Thanks for coming, hanging out with me today. We're talking to these guys because next Friday, the 3rd of February, they're going to be taking the stage here at the Rooster. And they've got a great show planned for you. So with all that said, are we going to hear a cover song in your set?
Well, man, I think we were actually thinking of doing it.
There is one.
Well, we're thinking about it. Well, we're thinking of doing it. So if we do, we'll,
but it's funny enough that whole
we won't do spoiler alerts though,
because it has been a topic of recent discussion within the band.
If you're interested in hearing your favorite local original band do some covers, come to this show because we might actually throw a couple out for you. We'll see.
I think the thing to take away from this part of the conversation is like wherever you stand as an artist on doing covers, there's nothing wrong with it. Like if you feel like, no, I've worked so hard on this music, I want them to hear my music, that's fine to have that perspective. But throwing a cover or two in, it might just up the ante a little bit of your live shows. It might give people more of a reason to listen to more of your music.
A good cover that's artfully chosen, you know what I mean, can actually elevate a set to another place, and if you do it right, and so I believe that.
I'm glad we had this conversation today.
Well, yeah, right. Well, to piggyback on that, can we talk a little bit about your influences? Because I think I told you this, Rodney, when we were talking earlier, right after we booked the show, I had gone and listened to your music, and I got kind of Big Head Todd and the Monster vibes. And when I said that, you were kind of like, I don't know if you were being nice or not, but you were like, I could see that. So, what are your influences, and talk a little bit about how you got to making the type of music you make.
Lord, my influences are totally different than
that's
our
the beauty.
sound.
That's the crazy thing about the group is every member's got some crazy.
So growing up, man, I was an '80s hair guy. Kiss was my big influence, and the whole hair metal glam scene. That was my thing. I didn't really gravitate towards the Pink Floyds at that time or anything like that. But when I started playing, I didn't start playing until I was 40, and I've been honored to play with some great musicians on some good stages, and that really changed my perspective of what music's about, right? So I did get to expand out into more of the the classic stuff, more of the Led Zeppelins that I wasn't really into, the Rushes. I really love Rush, the prog rock, and regional bands. J.J. Gray and Mofro. That's one of my go-to get me excited, to elevate my emotions and my energy, right? We go see them all the time. But how we make our, it's just all four of us have different influences, and then when it all comes together, it creates what we are, which is amazing in itself. Yeah, that we can do that.
What about you, Gray? What did you grow up on?
I grew up in Los Angeles. When I was coming up, I had a real I had a real Jones for '60s rock, especially garage rock. So I loved the Kinks, and I loved, the Rolling Stones, and then I started getting into other local bands from there. Like bands that were indicative to LA, like Love or like the Seeds, and then I started listening to like a lot of like the punk rock in the '70s, like Television, Tom Verlaine, God rest him. Talking Heads, a lot of the British stuff like Echo and the Bunnymen and Cure, the Chameleons, that's a lot of stuff like that. I moved to New York when I was 24, and I got taken in by this really amazing scene called the anti-folk scene. It was in the Lower East Side, and I was hanging out with people like the Moldy Peaches and with Regina Spektor, who wound up doing really well, and so I took all that in, and so definitely, my biggest influence is rock, rock and roll, but I love garage rock and I love punk, the classic punk. But other bands too, like Big Star and songwriters like Graham Parker and oh God, I mean, I could just go. There's so many, right?
A lot. I mean, there's some obscure names in there.
Yeah. But I'm also, big Beatle fan. I mean, I was at the Tangerine Trees thing last week, so, but definitely, I think my biggest, I think my years are definitely like from '60s through the end of the last century. I think were the biggest, years for me as far as like.
So
music.
how does that influence how you write music? Like growing up, having your taste are kind of outside the edges, for lack of a better way of saying that. Like a lot of the stuff that you've just named off, it's not stuff that you would have heard on the radio every day.
No,
so
no,
how
definitely.
How were you consuming that, and how did that play into how you started?
There was a lot
music?
of growing up in Los Angeles. There was alternative rock radio, like there's KROQ, which was on the far end of the dial, and then on the far left of the dial you had NPR. But at night they would play some really weird, like off the wall stuff. I think one of the cool things about the band is that everyone's got disparate influences in the group. So if I'm coming in with if I'm coming in with an Echo and the Bunnymen idea, Rodney's got his Kiss influence there, and he brings that influence with the bass, and then Daniel's got he's rooted in like a lot of Gulf music, like the Meters and Muscle Shoals stuff, and so he's got that kind of deep Southern kind of soul, but he's got some psychedelic in him too, and then Justin's like into prog rock and. You guys really
are all over the place.
Yeah, but I mean, when you hear it all together, I mean, it's a pretty. I mean, we work together to make it a pretty concise. It's a pretty concise rock sound. I mean,
you do have a cool sound. Like I said,
Yeah.
When I was listening, I kind of got those Big Ed Todd vibes. I can now that you mention, I can hear some of the prog influence in your music. But I love Rush. I grew up on Rush, Kiss. Pink Floyd was one of my favorites growing up. And of course, coming up, I was a kid in the 80s, teenager in the 90s. There was this big, huge explosion of creativity in music. After the 80s hair metal, it kind of morphed into grunge.
Yeah.
You had like these couple of years of like Guns N' Roses and Pantera, and then somehow grunge became a thing, and then that turned into alternative, and then I think the cool thing about alternative music, and this is why I think we peaked in the 90s as a society, people were just taking elements from, just grabbing elements from everywhere else and mixing it into this big blender. You had bands like 311 came out with this like, are they ska? Are they reggae? Are they hard rock? Are they rappers? What are they? And then No Doubt was another big band that there's this chick singing to ska music, but it's punk and it's pop and it's rock, and you just never heard anything like that before. It was almost like there was this formula everyone followed for whatever specific genre they had, and now fast forward 30 years and we have 15,000 genres of music.
Yeah.
I mean.
Well, it's like all the genres collided,
Yeah.
and then they like exploded apart into like a million different pieces.
And for me personally, had that not happened, I would probably still have this narrow taste of like I've just listened to classic rock and hard rock, but now I'll find myself listening to some off the wall stuff that I probably never would have listened to had it not been for this explosion of creativity that kind of opened my eyes to the possibilities and what you could do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good time to be around. It was great to experience all that.
We're not going to do the good old days thing.
Yeah, it's hard.
But,
It can become
there's still a lot of
nostalgia. It
talented-
can become nostalgia hour real quick. Yeah.
Yeah, that you can slip into that real quick. But I don't ever want to come off like I'm
wasn't
the
that a
old
mighty
guy.
time?
Yeah.
Wasn't that a mighty time?
Yeah, but it is exciting today to hear and see the different bands that are forming and coming along, and even bands that have been around for a while that we've changed so much the way we consume music and art that what is making it anymore.
What's great now is that anybody that wants to can make records, and they can make. And the fact, I mean, we would have had to have gotten, if we would have been lucky, we could have gotten signed in some other era and maybe made one record, and that would have been it. Yeah. Whereas now you can actually create like a body of work, what I mean, and put it out there. And if you, depending on how you put it out there and plug it, or people could consume it, and it's there, and that's unique to now. That was not the case even back then,
And they can do it in their bedroom. I mean, all day long.
Speaking of your music sounds really well produced. You've got a couple of records, and we'll put them up right now. You've got Proximo, or am I pronouncing that correctly? Is it
Proximo?
It's Proximo. You released this in 2020, and then you've got this. The City Is Closed that came out in 2022. Now, who produced these records?
2021.
2021. I'm sorry. You got The City's Closed came out in 2021, and both these records are great records. They sound wonderful. So, who helped you put these records together? Who where'd you record
we were
these?
working with Rob Tavlion at Catalyst Recording. He's the oldest. I think he's been around. He's the longest running freestanding studio in Charlotte at this point.
What's his name?
Rob Tavlion.
So we'll shout out Rob Tavlion.
Yeah, shout out to Rob. And we were working with him, not just on those records. We worked on him with earlier stuff too, the Happy Infinite series that we did in 2014. And so he was, we were working with him, and he worked on those two records, and he did a tremendous job.
He did do a tremendous job because they sound wonderful.
Yeah.
And you can hear these records on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you consume. You just look up Roman Candles Band.
Yeah.
Roman Candles rules okay.
Yeah. Roman Candles rule okay. Yeah. It's a Bowie. It's a Bowie reference.
Nice.
That's
But,
another influence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Bowie influence, there's a band here in the Charlotte area called Oh You Pretty Things. Name. I mean, you name your band Oh You Pretty Things.
Oh yeah. You're hoping it's got some Bowie in there, right?
They just released a new song a couple weeks ago called New Year's Eve. That's fantastic. Give that a listen. I think you'd like them. They're kind of sludgy, kind of rock.
Oh, okay.
It's good
Well,
stuff.
funny as a side note, three members of Roman Candles were actually in a David Bowie tribute band. me, Justin, and Daniel. Right after Bowie passed away, like a labor of love, we put together a Bowie. We called it Love and the Alien, and it was and we did a couple good shows with it, and it was a lot of fun. So yeah,
that could be
when it's
another
right,
show here,
we're
right?
totally in. Yeah, when it's right, we're totally down for it. When it feels right to do. Yeah, so.
So you guys have been a band for how long? Because you just referenced 2014. How long has Roman Candles been a band? The two albums are 2020, 2021. What did it take to get to that point?
Well, we started playing together at the end of 2013 as a unit, and we started recording at the beginning of we were recording songs before that, but I met Rodney. Rodney was in another band, and me and Daniel had been playing in a bunch of different projects, and we started playing together, and we had a great time, and we started working on some songs, and we were spending 2014 writing and recording a song every month and putting it out, and then we would compile them into these little EPs, and we made 3 EPs called The Happy Infinites, Volume 1, 2, and 3. And by the end of that year, we were a band.
Yeah.
And we had
were those conceptual?
I mean, that's a good question, because we were kind of following our nose. But then if you listen to all 3 EPs, there's like 4 or 5 songs on each EP. If you listen to them all back to back, there is a kind of weird arcing. There's a kind of weird vibe or theme to it.
But it's not telling a story, like
not in a conscious way. No, but other than the story of 4 dudes getting together and and becoming a band. I mean, that's kind of what it was.
That whole process was the most creative, interesting process I've ever been part of. I mean, literally, we would go, me, Gray, and Dan, on one day on a weekend and just figure out what we're going to play. Pick the chord structure, and then we would get basically the bass and the drums down from zero, from nothing. And then he would take it to Rob's, and then they would flesh it out.
And then we would
add
flesh
vocals.
it out.
We had no idea what we were doing month to month. But the goal was to release a song once a month, at least. From no idea, no concept, no practicing, no rehearsing. We would just go in and start jamming until we got it down. And it became a song. I mean, we got a year's worth of songs out of it. So
Now, so all four of you write, correct? Or
Yeah, we totally do.
Yeah.
We totally do. We're getting it's so far up until now. It's been kind of like the conveyor. You know, the process has been. You know, we
hey,
kind of.
I've got this.
Yeah.
What do you? How do you? So
Exactly.
No
Like
one's,
Justin
no one's
will call
coming in
in.
with a fully written song and be like, you do this, you do this. It's more like one of you's got a lick. It's like, hey, what do you think of this?
Yeah, like a lot of Proximo, I'd say about a good 85% of Proximo musically was Justin. He would bring an idea and then we'd flesh it out. I think City's Clothes was probably a little bit more of a mix of me and him, you know, bringing in an idea and then fleshing it out. Usually the words come last. You know,
Who's writing most of your lyrics?
Up until now, it's been me.
Yeah.
I'm guilty. But we're actually writing some new material now, and one of our best new songs is lyrically it's mostly Daniel, the drummer.
Yeah.
And I just kind of edited it for flow, you know, to make it easier to sing. But I mean, me and him kind of collabed on those lyrics, and that's one of our best songs. So we're gonna.
What's it called?
It's called Jesus Was an Astronaut.
Okay.
Debuting live at the Rooster on February.
Oh wait, we're
the
going to be
3rd.
the first place you play it.
You will actually be the first place we play it live.
Exclusive. I love that.
You heard it here first.
Fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's gonna.
all four of the new songs we're going to debut here.
We're gonna be debuting all the new songs on the new EP. Yeah, coming out.
Fantastic.
Yeah, here.
I'm honored, fellas.
So yeah, it's a really collaborative group. I mean, we're always bringing. I mean, we just kind of started working on a new song that musically was an idea of Rodney's, and might see that. You know, I might see the light of day later in the year, maybe in the summer.
Not on this album.
You know, not on this. It doesn't really fit the new
totally
the new
different
stuff.
vibe.
Yeah,
the
it's
four
different.
songs that you're going to debut, are they a smaller part of a bigger whole, or are you looking at like an EP?
We've been doing EPs,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. The full lengths seem a little too, like, you know, LPs seem a little too, 12 tracks. People's eyes just kind of glaze over when you give them 12 tracks to listen to.
Sometimes it depends. I think that we are living in a world of like most artists these days are releasing songs. They're not even releasing EPs. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, here's a new song. Even a lot of the artists I follow, it's like, here's a new song. It'll just, every day I'll open my phone and go to the Spotify app, and it's like such and such released this song. You don't see a lot of albums coming out, and personally, I'm okay with that. I've got no problem with that, but I am a little old school. I like to put a record on. We have a record player at the house. We like to put records on it and kick back and listen. And there's, it's a lot harder to put together, 10, 12 songs that have a flow to them, that, there's, sometimes an album tells a story. We were talking a little bit about conceptual concept albums, things, and there's a lot of jokes out there about it's a concept album, but they're awesome. Like if it's done well, they're awesome. When you sit and listen to this story be told through music, it's pretty dope.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't do that now, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with doing it this way either. There's how many different ways are there to do this thing? It's infinite, right? Just like you guys, all four of you are writing together. There's a lot of bands that are awesome where it's one guy's writing everything. Panic at the Disco, super massively successful band. That's all Brandon. He's just hiring guys. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
As long as his music's good, right? As long as there's.
And he
something
just
to
decided
it.
to call it quits. It's
Well, it's time to move on, I guess.
guess it is, yeah.
Maybe he's milked that cow dry, and
I
the
guess
next
so.
thing that he's on isn't going to sound anything like that, and he's like, I can't do anything else with this.
Yeah.
I mean, Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah.
That show stopped at he left at the top.
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah.
I don't get why there's a lot of people complain about a lot of things. When it comes to art and music, one of the arguments that really kind of grinds my gears is when people are like, oh, they used to be so much better, or they're not good anymore. And I'm like, is that what it is? Are they not good anymore, or did they just evolve?
Right.
Yeah.
Or did they branch into some area that you're not really feeling? You know what I mean?
You're an artist. Artists experiment with things. There's some bands that can be super successful writing the same album over and over again.
AC/DC.
Not gonna.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't gonna name any names, but Godsmack's one of them. Love Godsmack. Great band, great live band. But they've been writing the same album for a while, and the last one they put out, they turned a different direction, and it still turned out to be a good album.
Yeah.
But a lot of people would hear that. It's the Metallica Black Album argument.
Oh, right.
Hardcore Metallica fans feel like the Black Album was a disgrace. Was it? Or was that an amazing album that you just didn't like because it didn't sound like And Justice for All?
Because it blew open Metallica for the world. I mean,
yes.
They became a world stage band.
It put them in the maelstrom. Mm-hmm. It raised awareness to heavy metal music, and heavy metal became more mainstream after that.
Yeah.
So, do you really hate that album, or are you just in this little comfort zone where I want to hear the same thing over and over?
Yeah.
You have to and it takes balls to do that. It takes courage to decide, hey, I'm going to try something different. I'm having so much success over here. Got a house, got a wife and kids. Everything's going great. Now let me change this.
Yeah,
that takes courage. I respect that. I mean, but that might just be the eternal optimist in me. The way I look at things is like, hey, good for you. And if it falls flat, one of my very favorite bands is Pearl Jam. When they come along, it started with Mother Love Bone, and that's probably we can do a whole nother podcast on Mother Love Bone. Love that band. But through that tragedy, gave birth to this amazing band, Pearl Jam, that kind of took the world by storm and one of the flagship grunge bands at the time. I mean, I'm not afraid to say, they've got a couple stinkers, man. There's a couple of their albums I just don't like.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that they suck. It just means those albums didn't speak to me.
Right.
And then the last couple have been some of their best work. You evolve, you change, you experiment, and you never know what's going to happen. Now, with that said, is this new? We were talking a little bit before the show, and you had hinted at how your sound's changing. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
It's just going to be more guitar.
It's just going to be more guitars. Yeah. I mean, the founding lineup, original lineup of Roman Candles was had Matt Stash on keyboards, and he was a definitive part of like the whole Happy Infinite era.
Yeah.
So there was a lot more keys. Even up going into this project, he was still doing stuff, and he was adding, But 6 years was a long time, and he was gone for a long time, and then we just kind of got back together recently, and we, everyone's just kind of a little bit different. So he decided to move on and do some stuff of his own, and we're kind of still doing our own thing. And so just by virtue of the keyboards being,
I was going to say, is that why the sound changed, or have you entertained the thought of bringing in a new keyboardist?
Well,
or are you happy where you're going?
We're kind of, we're open to it, but the most important thing is that whoever we would bring in has to fit in with us as people, and they got it because I mean the chemistry with the four of us is really, really good. So we're not just gonna like bring on someone else on keys just to like lay down like.
Understood.
You know what I mean? So so they've got to fit it. So we're gonna take our time, and when the keyboards are needed, the keyboardists will appear. We're pretty sure. You know what I mean?
Manifest itself as it needs to.
Because I mean, so yeah, just by virtue of like that recent change in the lineup, the next record's going to be a lot more guitar, which is kind of cool because I mean, there's not as much guitar stuff out there as there used to be. I mean, the keys have taken, synthesizers and things have taken like a real big part of the stage. For recent years, but
I remember in the early '90s listening to Nine Inch Nails.
Oh yeah,
and it was like, whoa, what is this? You've got all this synthesizer keyboard action going on in music, and I mean, hell, Trent Reznor probably has influenced millions.
He did.
Of
you can see it now because I mean, almost every kid outfit has every outfit with people under the age of 30 has at least a synthesizer in it, or doing some kind of soundscapey stuff. So it's big, So we're kind of embracing the classic 2 guitars, bass, drums, beat lineup, and seeing where that goes for
At least for this.
At least for this project.
Talk a little bit about your stage presence. Do you guys move around a lot? Like, we should probably tell people what you guys do in the band. I don't think we've addressed that yet.
Well, Rodney, what do you do in the band?
I'm the tall, lanky bass player.
That's right.
They put me in the corner. I can move, but we're not. I'm not really a thrash person. But
Yeah.
when the groove hits, man, the groove hits. Especially on the bass.
One of my favorite bass players to watch play is Blake Webb, who's in Testarossa.
Oh yeah.
Have you heard of those guys?
have.
They're local, but they're kind of on another tier here, and that dude has so much energy on stage. I mean, he's over there doing high kicks. I mean, it's no shit. It kind of reminds me of years ago. I went and saw Earth, Wind and Fire. Me and my uncle went and saw Earth, Wind and Fire up in Charlotte, and this is another band that I grew up listening to their music. And these guys, the original singer's son is their singer now, but the bass player in that band, another tall, lanky guy, he's got to be 70.
He's still doing
and he's up there high kicking. And I'm just like, I almost had this moment like, what am I doing with my life? Like, this guy's 70 years old just kicking over his head while holding his beat, and it's like, I don't know, man, that was pretty awesome to see.
I can't kick over my head.
No.
I'd probably break a hip or something.
Right. No, I was about to say. So I'm the medium-sized, enthusiastic front guy who tries to maintain his enthusiasm but still stay safe. I don't know. So I don't do high kicks. I try to keep it. I'm trying not to injure myself, but I try to enjoy myself. I mean, I try to keep things going. So
it's all about enjoying that moment.
Yeah.
I mean, being on stage is a very special moment to be able to perform these songs to some
we still
sense
get
of
a kick
crowd,
out of
right?
it.
Having that back and forth of energy.
Yeah.
We can record at the house every day, but to be able to get in front of people and have that exchange, it's just a magic moment. There's a lot of magic moments that can happen.
One of the really interesting parts of the process is like after you're done making a record is learning how to make those things work live. Because you'll find that what works on a record and sounds awesome, you try to do it in the room and you look at each other going, this is not working at all.
Dude, I can't tell you how many times I've gone to see a band live who I already love their music, and you see their live performance and you're just completely let down. And then the inverse of that, maybe there's a band, you'll hear a band on radio and you're like, oh, whatever, and then they're opening for someone, you go see them and you're like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's a lot of bands, and I think a lot of bands write that way. A lot of bands are like, let's write this like we're performing it, and then sometimes that just doesn't translate to good.
It's a trick.
To good out.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
It's tricky, and since we're like the kind of band that builds its songs up, sonically from the ground up, we'll at the end we'll have something that sounds great, and then we'll spend another additional 3 to 6 months in the rehearsal room trying to make that work in a room with people in it.
But you make a great point though about the exchange of energy when you're on the stage. That's a lot of the reason why I open this place is just, if you want to boil it down, I'm just a junkie for that feeling. Like I'm trying to feel it every day with this place. I want to see live music every day. So how do I do that?
You have your own place.
Open a venue. Yeah, I love it that much, and I know a lot of other people do too. And otherwise this wouldn't work, right?
I'm glad you opened the space, really. And when we came out,
we're glad you're here. Absolutely.
For that Scandal Tangerine Tree.
Yeah, shout out to Tangerine Trees. Shout out to Scandal and the King family. Like they really brought the energy that night. I mean, this room there's our capacity. We hit it. This place was full. We could not fit any more people in, and everyone had a blast. Not one person went online and complained about us or left a bad review. Nice. Everybody said nice things about us. So awesome. I'm left to assume that everyone had a good time, and that's exactly what I'm doing this for. We had close to 200 people all sharing this big moment together. And, we're trying to do that again this Friday the 3rd when Roaming Candles takes our stage.
With Shake the Dust.
With Shake the Dust. Now, Shake the Dust, talk a little bit about those guys. How'd you get hooked up with them? Let's promote the show.
Yeah.
We've known Craig Hanks for a while.
Yeah, for a little bit.
We've actually shared this, bills with him when he was in other bands. And we had a great night with him late last year. We played a place in Charlotte, We played the Starlight with Shake the Dust, and it just was a great night. And so we just knew that the two bands complement each other real well because they have this really good kind of Americana rock kind of sound, and yeah, we just complemented each other, and it was just a good fit. And so when we were looking at another place to play, we thought they would be a really good band to fit in with. And yeah, and we always have a great time with them. They're just great guys, good songs.
And Phil Lomack and Craig Hanks and the rest of the guys.
Yeah, lovers of the guitar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
I love a good guitar solo, man. That's a lost art, it seems, with a lot of new music.
A good, a Les Paul through a Vox amp just sounds awesome, man. You know what I mean? It's just great, And so, so they've always been really good. They've been a good, just good friends of ours, and we just enjoy playing with them.
Cool. Well, shout out to Shake the Dust.
Absolutely.
You can catch them opening for Roman Candles next Friday, February 3rd at the Rooster. Well, let's. All right. So, is there anything else you guys want to promote while we're still here? You want to talk about where people can find you and that kind of stuff? And if you've got any other shows lined up you want to promote, feel free.
Well, if you look for us online, just at Roman Candles Rule OK, and that's our username on all the platforms, on the Twitter, the TikTok, the Instagram, the Facebook, the YouTube, our website at www.romancandlesruleok.com. And you'll be able to find all of our videos,
all our music's there,
links to all of our stuff, even the Happy Infinite stuff we have up there.
Yeah. I like what you guys do with YouTube. It kind of reminds. There's a guy named James who's in a band called World Sauntering Day that have performed here, and they performed for us before we got open. We did a couple of off-site shows, and he spends a lot of time doing visualizer videos for his songs. And I know, just from talking to him, I know how much work it is to put those videos together. And you guys have a couple of like live action music videos, but you also have a lot of visualizers and lyric videos. Who's doing that for you, by the way?
This dude.
Yeah.
It's this guy right here.
I'm the guy behind the keyboard.
He's the guy behind it. Yeah, definitely.
I can't tell you how many nights and how many hours we've spent running through video.
I've been there with him. It takes a while.
And trying to create some kind of semblance of a storyline.
Oh my God! Shout out to anybody in the film editing industry that takes like 6 months to do. I mean, it's like it takes so much work to make a cohesive. We're only working in 4-minute, to put together something that's like 90 minutes to 2 hours long and making that make sense. Just that's a whole other world, man.
It's kind of crazy how how it takes shape too, because you start down one path, at least trying to create some kind of storyline with similar visual elements, right, to kind of keep some consistency in the video. And typically where we end up is with the story is like M87. I mean, if you guys go watch M87, tell us what you think it means.
Yeah, that was a
totally
fun,
different.
that was
or
a fun
faces,
video.
even faces,
or the faces. That was a fun one. That was
definitely a stoner psychedelic kind of trippy video.
I definitely recommend going and checking Roman Candle's music videos out on YouTube. We were looking at some of them today before the show, and it's real creative. It's really cool stuff, and it also kind of whets your appetite for the show that's going to come up this week, and maybe if you go listen to some more of their music.
They'll be able to sing along.
You'll be able to sing along. You can catch that feeling we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely.
In fact, we'll play faces at the end of this. If you liked what you saw at the beginning of the show and you're curious about more, stick around at the end of the show. We'll put the video of faces at the end of the episode so people can see that as well.
And we'll be we're looking forward to the Rooster on February 3rd. After that, I think we're going to be doing the Starlight Bar in March.
Starlight, yeah.
And then we've got something also in Charlotte in May or end of April. At Petra's. And then, God willing, maybe we'll come. Sometime in May or June, we'll be back here with you.
Come back for another
that would
show.
be great. We'd love to.
We'll
do
be
that.
really tight by then.
Yeah. We've been working.
We'll
on
have
new
it down
stuff
for sure.
We might even have a new record out. We might even have a new thing out there by that point.
Yeah.
So
if you guys follow Roman Candles on social media, remember it's Roman Candles Rule OK. I'm sure they'll be able to see those dates and promo for those upcoming shows.
Absolutely.
yeah.
And as far as upcoming shows goes, here at the Rooster, Thursday, February 9th, we resume our Storyteller series. We have Robert Johnson coming in to do his Storytellers. These guys are over here nodding. You know Rob?
I do.
You know Robert? He's
I
fantastic.
played with Rob.
Friend of ours.
Robert
yeah.
came in here. Him and his wife came in for some of our open mics, and he got up and performed. And when he come off stage, I ran right up to him and was like, I want you to come do a Storytellers.
He's a good guy.
He seems like a really, really great guy. So that's Thursday the 9th. That's a free show, by the way. Friday the 10th, we have Maiden Voyage. That is an Iron Maiden tribute out of Winston-Salem. Opening for them will be Project 13, who has played our stage before. Project 13's awesome. They're a little mix of originals and covers. Saturday the 11th, we have Ben Gatlin. And then the following week, on the 16th, which is a Thursday, we're going to have an open blues jam. So bring your instrument and get up and play some blues on our stage. Again, that's free. And then this Friday the 17th, we got the Brent Cates duo. Opening for him will be recently signed Garrett Huffman. Young kid. He's like 17, 18 years old, just got signed. Just him and a guitar. He just started learning how to play guitar during the pandemic.
Oh, really?
He was an athlete turned musician. And the guy was just born to win. So he'll be on our
Had
stage.
music in his soul.
Yeah.
And then Saturday the 18th, Chris Furry and Medicine Crow. Opening for them will be Echo 13. That's a show you're not going to want to miss. Those guys are amazing. And then Sunday the 19th, we've got Palmetto Drive coming to the stage. So a lot of fun stuff lined up here at the Rooster. You can check out more of Roman Candles at Roman Candle Rule OK. Roman Candles Rule OK. I'll get that right eventually.
It's a mouthful.
It's a mouthful. But fellas, I really appreciate you coming down here today, taking the time to talk with us.
Thanks for having us, man.
I've enjoyed this. I'm really looking forward to your show.
Thank you for having us.
Anything
Mike.
you want to leave the audience with before we get out of here?
Peace and love, man.
Yeah, it's all love, and stay healthy, stay safe out there, and hopefully we'll see you here at the Rooster on the 3rd of February.
All right, come check them out.
Peace out.
Thanks a lot. Enjoy this. Here, we'll do my MTV VJ thing. Up next, we got Roman Candles with their song Faces.
Above the bed where I lie, hanging like the moon, bring it like a Berlin tune, reaching there past the backyard. this one